Welcome everybody to today's webinar about talent utilization in the age of AI, but both the challenges and opportunities therein. And we've got a great set of speakers. We've also got a terrific set of moderators. The full modesty, I am the second moderator, but we have the first moderator today is the great Muki Kulhan, who comes to us from the IBC Accelerator world, and she's going to help kick things off here in just a second. And I want to thank everyone for attending. I also want to thank our co-sponsoring company working with Dowdy Brand Communications out of New York City. DBC will be helping us with the project today and recording, and this will be available later for folks. And I want to say, with all that, without further ado, pass the microphone over to Muki.
Thank you, Will, and thank you everyone who's been signing up and hitting us on LinkedIn with loads of awesome comments and about this super duper duper important topic. And we're excited to share this to you today with some really fantastic industry expertise and speakers. Like Will said, my name is Muki Kulhan. I am the innovation lead with IBC Accelerators. And if you're not familiar with IBC, it is the International Broadcasting Convention, and the Accelerators are the media innovation program that brings together champions like studios, broadcasters, academia, and forms mini teams with vendors and suppliers. And then project teams are formed like mini consortium, part mad scientist lab, think tank. And then we do a short sprint toward IBC to explore a variation of solutions, not set out to boil the ocean, but really look at the pain points within the industry and see where this living R&D could really be brought to life, and really talk to each other about what to do from there. And it's all open source and open knowledge sharing. And so I've been super proud to be a part of this, the program for a couple of years now. And some of the topics that have really resonated with the entire industry and brought up is around the game engine, extended realities, the virtual volumetric capture, facial capture. And then last year we did have a really fantastic project that the team hand were involved in around synthetic humans for entertainment and accessibility. And this is a topic that's not going away, which has brought us to this webinar today, really exploring, what are the current statuses and the future outlooks around name, likeness, and name, image, and likeness, or nil. No pun intended. That means zero in some European countries. But where this compensation of the actual virtual talent and digital replicas come from, talking about like legal and virtual and fictional talent, film and TV and sport and beyond. And so it's really exciting to kind of look at some of the R&D and some of the exploration that's been done, not only within IBC, but within my esteemed colleagues and peers that are joining me today. And we're going to go beyond things, it doesn't really even count within like an ABBA's Voyage or the holograms that Elvis and Kiss and, things that Warner Discovery are working on. So we're going to kind of like really think about the challenges and the opportunity and where AI is layered into this, not only from a not necessarily an artificial intelligence, but also where that machine learning comes into play and how these tools can be not only explored, but used for good, and then setting us up for the future. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce my beautiful, lovely, close personal showbiz friends panel. We've got Renard Jenkins, who's the president of SMPTE and I2A2. Give us a wave, Renard. He's kind of concentrating on, he's live based in California, I think, but from Atlanta today. Kind of touching on where we are with production pipelines and training tools, where the industry's knowledge or lack of knowledge of where we can deep dive into this topic, but also remember the fun aspects as well too. So we want to kind of touch on those pain points and loop back around too. We've got Natalie Monbiot, head of strategy at Hour One. Give us a wave, Natalie. I think you're based in London, is that right? I believe so, in the UK.
New York.
New York. I'm so sorry. That's okay. I just assume, but I've got the American accent in Britain, and then you've got the British accent in New York. So that's how we yin yang here, people. So Natalie at Hour One was going to be like, her expertise lying around AI avatars, ethical deepfakes, where we are with a little bit of enterprise, stock avatars, and also looking at some of those revenue opportunities around paid micropayments, passive income, where real humans can actually be exploring some of the profit that we're lying around there too. Next up, we got Wilfred Driscoll, CEO and co-founder of Wild Capture. Howdy, Will. Will, we know that you've had a really super rich, extensive career in production, and also now closely working with individual actors one at a time, doing these types of scans, looking at big crowd scenes within the film industry, sports, extending into where these digital humans might be necessary around sports and automotive and training, and where this footage comes into play around but based off of production and what's being scrutinized. We're going to kind of talk on some things that are super duper topical and relevant, and a little bit of sustainability in the production too. So thank you, Will, for joining us. And we've got Rachel Joy Victor, last but not least, co-founder of FBRC.ai, kind of looking dipping into her expertise around neuroscience, the Fabric AI, where these AI tools and workflows for content production are starting to develop, where they've kind of come from in that development. And really what I love about this, like how things plug into each other. Where are these puzzle pieces? And where are we able to kind of like collaborate and work together on that too? So I'm gonna stop my yapping for a bit and pass over to have a little chat about just like a little bit of an introduction about where we got to where we are today. That was a bad sentence. How we come to where we are today, right? Now, Renard, you've seen this, the ecosystem, you've seen this trajectory grow and grow and grow and change and shift and ebb, fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up. And especially within your role at SMPTE, like looking at the wider ecosystem, how would you be able to give us like a little bit of an evolution of how we got to where we are today, just to kind of help us set the scene for modern day, present day?
Sure. I think where we are today, probably best to start around the mid-teens of the aughts. So we started it with a real hard look at what the supply chain looks like, what the production pipeline looks like, and everyone was really into the world and the space of automation. You heard automation this, automation that. You heard other buzzwords that were thrown around, blockchain this, blockchain that, all of these types of things that were there. But what we were really focused on at that time was machine learning and automation, and figuring out where could we find efficiency within the supply chain? Where could we find efficiency within the production pipeline? And so when taking a look at that, automation for sort of simple tasks are the first things that you want to do. And then how do you move big files faster? That was really sort of the baseline of what everyone was trying to do. And then you got the cloud input that came into everything. With the cloud came, some people excited about it, some people had fear. And so the adoption within certain portions of the supply chain have taken a bit longer than they should. And that is something that I think may or may not affect where we're going to go and what we're going to talk about later today. But now we are in a situation where we can finally tell, the marketing people that they can actually, efficiently use the title of artificial intelligence. People were throwing that title around a few months ago, a few years ago, when it wasn't artificial intelligence. It was truly just machine learning and automation. Now we're at a place where, hey, we could actually build a production pipeline or a supply chain that has the ability to look at itself and look at its performance and adjust, or at least suggest an adjustment that would allow it to improve on what it's doing. That's where we are today. I think that's one of the places that we could actually grow, but a lot of it's going to have to deal with the education of the individuals who are in some of the seats to write the checks.
Exactly.
So I think that's where we are right now.
Exactly. Now, thank you so much for that summary. And I think it's so important to really always look at where we've come from to get to where we are today, and like where these tools have ended up and the origins of it all too. And I mean, Rachel, I wanted to go to you, like kind of thinking about that end to end, where these puzzle pieces fit in. How do you think the impact of the learnings that we've had, especially over the last few years, how do you think this is going to be plugging into the current workflows that we are coming into today?
Yeah, I think to Renard's point, like there are a lot of terms that I think we've been speculating about, of like, this is the hypothetical of what we want it to be. And with where we're at with the tech, we have the ability to actually move forward on making that a reality. So automation, moving to actually being AI, or I think another term that was popular, like you were saying in the mid-aughts or earlier, was around the idea of like transmedia storytelling, the ability to kind of have these experiences that live across platforms and formats, and so you could have a continuous experience as a fan. And that was the goal, but then the ability to support that on the production side wasn't there. But now we have the ability, I think, with where the tools are going, to have more of this transmedia production kind of mindset. But I think in terms of implementation, we still have this issue with change management, right? Of like, what does it actually take to adopt this within a studio system, within these pipelines? I led for a couple of years design and strategy at this brand and like studio innovation centered around innovation. And, you know, we would have companies coming to us being like, we want to adopt NFTs, we want to go into the metaverse. The gap between like having an idea of what the thing is and implementing it is always very, very large. And that's because it comes down to the nuances of development, right? And I think it's great, like with the panelists we have here, there's even a difference between what like what is doing with more of a 2D kind of output, and then the computational data that Wild Capture pulls through their pipeline, right? So that's differences in pipeline, in process, in adoption, and where it's used. There's the challenges of like when we talk about virtual beings, there's the AV, the physical likeness piece, but then there's also the voice likeness piece. There's also the personality likeness, right? Those are all like nuances that really affect implementation. And studios historically have had a challenge with these types of nuances and with being able to kind of tap into these efficiencies because of how siloed these systems are. So I think AI has the ability to introduce these kind of efficiencies, but it really comes down to can studios understand these nuances and thus and talk through these through fundamental issues around who owns an asset, what does that mean in terms of costs and how costs are shared, to actually really tap into where this can introduce efficiencies in the long run.
Exactly. And we all know across the board, across all these panels we do every week, is that the necessity for upskilling, the necessity to be educating our peers, and for them to have a better understanding, especially our colleagues and peers in the industry that might be more familiar with and comfortable with traditional workflows. And, you know, if that's like an easing into these new approaches, gently, you know, get like a new little bits and pieces on, you know, so they can avoid the evolve or die scare. And it's the fear of not knowing, the fear of the unknown, I think, is where we are suddenly scraping away rather quickly of what we're needing to do. I just want to remind our audience, our beautiful, lovely audience all around the world, thank you for tuning in, to keep any questions coming in through the Q&A into the Zoom chat, and I'm going to be getting to them throughout the session as they come in. I've seen the first one come in, but I'm going to drop that in just a moment here too. Rachel, just kind of keeping with you for one more thought. We know that, you know, the contrast of all the aches and pains and what we hear, especially around deep fakes, if we can kind of like touch on that, and things that are happening almost every day in the media, like way earlier than Taylor Swift, but even between the Taylor Swift incident and now. Can we just flip that around? Like, have there been any positive use cases of talent, AI and talent that you've seen even in the last year?
I think there's really a broader opportunity for talent to expand into other formats, to be able to you know, do the work that they're doing, but then also have, you know, their avatars continue to do work. And obviously that's a process of to do that in a good way takes time, and hand is, I think, part of that in terms of enabling talent to ensure that they get revenue out of it. But I think what we're seeing is it's not a zero-sum game, right? Whenever we see these adoptions and efficiencies that come in production, there's the efficiency piece, but there's also the increased demand on the side of consumers. So people want more content, and now there's more opportunities for talent to support that desire.
Exactly. So that's a great answer. And I know it's going to be a topic of discussion around the panel too. So thank you, Rachel. I'm going to go to Wilf next. And let's get stuck into production now. This is what we're about, in the core and spine of our industry here. You know, so from your production point of view, what are the kind of key changes that you've seen, especially around even like, you know, OpenUSD, the need to make these kind of fast decision versus studios adapting? We know that it might not come from studios themselves. It's come from us as grafters, the coalface portion of the industry. Do you think it does come down to the coalface grafters that will help lead the education into, the further knowledge sharing?
Yeah, it's it's a great time. Like panels like this, it's a great time to share knowledge. There's no, there's plenty of reasons to be afraid, but there's plenty of reasons to be excited. There's a lot of harmony coming together. Going back to the transmedia message that Rachel, Joy, and Renard were hinting at or getting into, there's a lot of sharing of data and metadata across platforms, devices. And so that's opened a door for independent innovation where small companies like ours can fuel innovation that's vital to larger content processes and pipelines. And it allows, the smaller guys to engage with the major IPs. And it allows for niche development where we're all cogs in a wheel that create much larger, greater things. And that shared knowledge allows us to come together. Today, right now, obviously with this panel, realism and ownership of likeness is at the core message. And so as time's been recent times, the relationship between name, image, likeness has grown. And so where we are today, the relationship between artists and actors has to come together closer, where there's a lot of misconceptions in what is a scan, what is AI, because scans themselves are a series of photographs, essentially. It hasn't yet entered the AI realm. However, there's a lot of AI, using the term AI in a generality, because a lot of it is machine learning, computer vision, processy flows, all sorts of intricacies. A lot of it's to speed up time. A lot of it's to clean up content, not manipulate it.
Exactly. So that's a really, really, really great point. A lot of folks think that it's just about that image and it's just about what people are seeing on the outside, but there's so much under the hood to unpack. And that's probably a second panel, the nuts and bolts under the hood. What's in this engine that's driving this? I liked how you touched on that the knowledge that we need to kind of between like an actor and AI and what are these differences? And again, this kind of the challenges and opportunities in AI talent utilization does genuinely span, quite a couple little different strands. And one of them is, that fear of the unknown. And you and I were sharing a tweet the other day around EBDR, employment-based digital replicas, and around a tweet that an actor did about losing work and being scanned and not sure, like maybe they were afraid they would become a deep fake and where the fear and these actors are of being scanned. Can you just explain what we saw? And
Sure.
the solution to that going forward.
There's plenty of case studies where there's a lot of confusion as where's this data, how's it going to be used? And the problem is an age-old problem. It's a theft issue. And with larger studios, while the sustainability of employment is the issue there, if you use a piece of content, the SAG-AFTRA actually deserves quite a bit of content. They deserve a lot of credit for a pretty good generalized safe message where it's the onus is on the studio and producers to follow these guidelines to utilize these likenesses. But there's been an industry with the visual effects industry for decades where scanning people in non-likeness generation forms for costumes, for actor safety and stunts, character effects, crowd replication. There's a lot of use cases. So the fear is also shared on the artist studios who have also been impacted by this whole supply chain. And in their world, these shortcut tools are not interesting to them. They want to actually generate, compelling artwork, just like the talent wants to generate compelling performances. Oh, sorry, Muki, you're on mute.
Gosh, you know why? Because somebody's walking past me. I thought I'd have a cubby hole. We're showbiz people. But I wanted to say that brings us into a really kind of nice segue to throw to Natalie. thinking about where those kind of the revenues and where, you know, where these kind of opportunities lie. And I, you know, Natalie, from your amazing experience that you have, especially over the last like 10 years or so in this space, you know, from your experience of where we are in this kind of present day state of play, where are these areas of like efficiency and incentives in the approaches that you've been seeing?
Sure. So our one, for the last 5 years since we were founded, we've essentially built a platform that enables real people to create a virtual twin and then make content with it, just using text. So the whole thing is about efficiency. Our premise is entirely about efficiency. So instead of constantly having to be in front of the camera in order to create content using your likeness, you can now create a virtual twin and generate content using your likeness without having to be in front of the camera. For that type of content, in our case, it's kind of talking heads, direct to camera, stuff that is usually pre-scripted. So the whole premise of what we do is based on efficiency. And then it's based on efficiency on the other side too, because some of this virtual talent is actually available for hire on the platform. So if you are a business that wants a spokesperson in their content, and our main use cases, we do media and entertainment, we can touch on that in a bit, but our main use cases are any kind of like training content or learning and development content. And if you're trying to kind of like upgrade your learning and development content to be more engaging, to be video oriented, to have an instructor in it, suddenly that sort of has become much more accessible to kind of any business, even a small business, to be able to create that type of content using kind of a lifelike persona in it. So the whole premise is about efficiency, and also the way that we capture that you can very easily create an avatar. So not as high quality and high fidelity as, you know, a one that Wilf would make using volumetric capture, but we can do a lot already in just a kind of by capturing about 2 or 3 minutes of source video from your smartphone, 4K camera ideally, but even from your smartphone camera, we can create an avatar based on that very quickly, and just make it available for use immediately in the medium of video, which is, you know, obviously highly pervasive.
Exactly. And I think those are part of those incentives as well too, a little bit of that democratization and having the general public, you know, be aware that there are ways to be producing and have it be still that's still their IP and their ownership, and there are some positive things to be made. But speaking of positive, I wanted to loop back to you around some you know, positive use cases around AI talent that you've seen in the last year, especially, you know, you are knee deep in this as well. And if I can bolt on the question that's come in through the chat around the utilization of the AI, like, does that affect royalty splits as well? So yeah, like what's been catching your eye, Natalie?
Okay, so in our model, so one incentive is very direct. We've got about 400 people to date who've had their virtual twin available for hire on our platform, and they earn a passive income in the form of micropayments. So no one's making a living, at least with us yet, you know, as an avatar. But essentially that is one direct way, one incentive for doing it. Another would be if you have a personal brand and you're trying to scale it. In this case, you know, we work with futurists and sports talent to essentially create an avatar and so that they can actually scale their presence across different platforms and literally be in many places at once. So if your objective is to be out there more and deliver your message through video, through your own likeness, then, you know, that's a really effective, that's a great incentive to use our technology and our platform. And then we also got instances where someone's avatar has actually been hired as a news correspondent for a broadcast. And the incentives there for the broadcaster are large because they don't need to hire the whole person, the whole talent. They're just hiring a fraction of the talent. So kind of think about like the hierarchy of you and the live in-person you. I mean, there's probably even more of a premium on that part of you, and I think it will continue to be that way. If you think about sports and like live sports, I think like the live game has become so much more of a premium in being there live since you've had streaming and on-demand content. So I think we're going to see sort of similar trends, but also the ability to send out versions of yourself out there and help you scale your presence, and also engage communities that you might not have been able to engage before, because suddenly you can be speaking in any language, for example.
Exactly. And we haven't even really done a deep dive into the voice and how the AI, the voice element affects that too, or areas around the benefits with the AI talent utilization, around accessibility, inclusion, diversity. So much of this, so much more to unpack, ladies and gentlemen. I know we're coming up to time. These are really short, bite-sized half an hours, and there's so much to talk about. I could do a fireside chat with each of my wonderful speakers here. And we're going to have to kind of like go cap things off and go, but we have one more question, I think, from Robin Appleton. Thank you very much. Asking, how long does it take to create an avatar? I hate that phrase, how long a piece of string is, so we'll just say, how long does it take to create an avatar? From our knowledge, you know, we know things will vary between something that's quite simple, even on Microsoft Teams. Now you're able to use your avatars or your Ready Player Me's, versus something that's quite photorealistic and authentic, like with the volumetric capture. So I'm putting a little summary out on behalf of everybody here, but just kind of like rounding out as into the home stretch here, thinking about the tools that we are using across our verticals, beyond media and entertainment, thinking about how these foundational tools, you know, that really need vision. We still need vision from the not risk adverse leadership. We still need to shift these kind of 100-year-old workflows. We still need to be making these changes. So we are at like this, at a very, very exciting point in the industry right now. We're at a tipping point, and everyone knows it, and no one knows it more better than this panel and the other speakers on the other three panels. But just to kind of rounding out back to you, Renard, about, you know, thinking how we can make these right decisions and guide the industry. One last kind of final soundbite from each of my speakers here, starting with Renard Jenkins, please, live from Atlanta.
Yeah, I would say our main goal needs to be education and not fear. We need to understand these tools, and we also need to make sure that individuals who are doing a lot of decision making at the executive level, that they truly understand what these tools are capable of doing. This is not a replacement. These are not sentient beings. This is nothing more than statistics, probability, and mathematics. And the human and the digital, just as this group is coming together, have to be in sync with one another in order for any of this to actually work.
Yeah, again, this is being recorded, and we want everyone to listen back to that. That's a perfect, really, really brilliant answer. Natalie and Wilf, just like, what are these kind of other opportunities that you're seeing? What's keeping you up at night?
I can jump in quickly. Just in terms of opportunities, I'll just say something that's we're working on now. It's like, you have this talent who is actually, she's not considered a talent herself. She's never been really on TV or anything like that, but she is a cook. And she's an immigrant and sort of set up, you know, a supermarket chain, and she's written a cookbook. And she's, you know, she's sort of probably like in her 60s, late 60s at this point, and she's created her AI twin to be able to actually turn her cookbook into video and into kind of instructional video. And what I love about that is, first of all, it's like really helping to build a brand with very little, and sort of expand the brand with very little lift and very, very little knowledge of technology, let alone AI. And so I think there's some just really interesting opportunities there, which are kind of open not just to, you know, top tier talent that AI and sort of avatar technology will enable.
Thank you, Natalie. Wilf, and then Rachel, for kind of last soundbite, please.
Sure. Work keeps me up late at night. I sleep like a baby because groups like this come together, and you know, we engage companies like Hand, throwing them a thing for a minute. We're in their beta program because they help us track every pixel, every frame of a talent, so that as we disrupt, we're helping a sustainable production ecosystem remain sustainable.
Thank you, Will. And just the super quickest note from you, Rachel, I promise I'll interview you in another fireside chat down the road.
I think to Renard's point, education, but not just about the technology across industries, because we're seeing such a bleed between narrative, media, entertainment content and functional content around spatial computing and all of that. So
Yes.
keep learning.
100%. I cannot thank all of you enough, and thank you everyone to the 170 people watching this right now, and hopefully beyond as the video on demand. We do have a couple more questions coming into the chat, but I invite my speakers and myself to kind of type in some of these answers as we call that a wrap for panel session 1 in our challenges and opportunities in AI talent utilization. Lots more to come, so consider this a part 1 of many over the next year and beyond.